What a better solution to provide business and technical training, 1 to 5 day training to businesses and community around. So they sought out Benchmark and did an acquisition. What other company, Mike? Skolka?
Skolka, yes.
Yeah, and they're big in Cisco.
Cisco, HP, yeah.
So if you've known of a Skolka or Benchmark, that's who we are today. Our folders say ITT Tech. You'll find us by going to CPD, Center for Professional Development, not to confuse you any more than we already are. And when you talk to us, we'll use all 3 names interchangeably, so you'll just know who we are. If you look in your folder, there's a couple of really great things. This is the agenda for our TechFuse conference. It's our, how many years?
9th year.
9th year. So anybody been to TechFuse? Oh no, Mike.
MindSurf? How about MindSurf? Here's MindSurf.
Oh no!
This is a great opportunity then.
Oh no, you need to go. Everybody needs to go to TechFuse. It's a 1-day conference and it's a day-long event to get you all caught up. So if you've ever been really busy, anybody ever get really busy and you just can't get away? Yeah, right? You got lots of things to do. So this gets you caught up. There's a whole track this year, first time ever that Cisco is giving us a whole track. Their engineers are actually presenting. And then Microsoft, we work with Microsoft, Chris Kunze, to develop a whole series of different sessions to deliver. In fact, it's kind of a platform off of Ignite, Microsoft Ignite. Richard Harbridge from Toronto is coming in. He's our keynote. You get fed for the day. Early bird special is $349. For your group, since you're here and you came to visit us, we're giving a 15% off voucher as well. And this can either be used on TechFuse or it can be used on a course category 1 through 4. So if you've thought about some training, it's transferable to anybody in your organization. There's also group discounts. So I know RSA is here with a number of people. If 3 or more come from a company, there's even additional discounts on it. So a great value for a great day. This is Mike Schimmel. He works with a lot of organizations and companies in the community. My name is Krista Thielen. If you need anything, reach out to us and we'd be happy to help. And just thank you for being here and come back anytime.
I actually had a quick question too.
Okay.
All of you, how many of you have attended an ISC squared course at a vendor like Benchmark or somewhere else? Yep. How about anybody else? How about have sent one of their team members to a course? Okay.
Great opportunity.
This is a great chance. This is a great chance using the certificate there. One thing, you mentioned the 40% voucher, right?
50.
When they go to TechFuse, you get 2 40% vouchers off of our courses too, our public courses.
Yeah.
Okay, category 1 through 4 again. So beyond the 15% voucher that you're going to get there, if you attend TechFuse, $349 for 1 day, can't go wrong. You get 2 40% vouchers to use after that. You can transfer that to somebody else in your organization too. So definitely take a look at it. Give us a call if you have any questions. Take a look at the agenda, and we'd love to see you guys there. So.
If everybody get a folder?
Yep.
I'll leave a couple behind you. Oh, there you go. Leave a couple more here if you need them. If you need anything, just ask and we'll be happy to help you. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You bet.
Anyhow, so that was a slide that we were going to present later, but we can go on. Let's go on to the next slide. This is.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
There we go.
Okay. This is just a welcome one. Go to the next one. Okay. Chapter update. Basically, we are trying to get everything to that. We had this is the meeting agenda. Chapter update, upcoming events in the Twin Cities, and then the presentation by Sean O'Brien over here. Board report. Okay, from the president's standpoint, we are having some transition issues, but we should be able to fix them. We should get Google Meetups working on a regular basis. Right now it's not.
Well, it is, but it isn't.
It is.
So
we're
the
recording this meeting, but we are not broadcasting it at the same time.
The link we sent out doesn't work.
But,
They just sent out the new link, so.
we're trying to get things better. I've basically, because Rich is now the vice president of AMSA, he no longer can be our representative to AMSA. So Amber has agreed to take on that function. You have anything to report from AMSA?
We made a couple changes in the way voting structure works. So actually, there's no longer members of AMSA. We're all affiliates as separate chapters, and we all get equal votes. So just because the founding members put in money originally for AMSA, they used to get 2 votes, and no longer everyone's equal.
Everybody gets 1 vote?
Everybody gets 1 vote. And we're looking into adding a Secure 360 Iowa and a Secure 360 Wisconsin. So we're investigating whether that's possible, and if so, we're gonna try and do that this coming year in 2016. So
Cool.
they'll just be 1-day events to start off with, very much like how Secure 360 was originally 10 years ago, but we're really looking, there's a lot of interest in those markets. We're reaching out to the other chapters there too. We kind of came up with we are the Upper Midwest Security Alliance, and that doesn't mean we're just in Minnesota.
Cool.
So,
Secretary, you got anything to report? Other than,
No, not really, other than typing familiar with ham.
we also are having some issues with our website. We're looking at transferring it to a different type of media. And our secretary, Bob, has agreed to head that direction on it.
Sure.
Scott, you want to report the treasurer?
Well, we have somewhere over $3,500, I think. We haven't had any major expenditures. We're budgeting for the remainder of the year, and the biggest expense probably will be the December holiday party. I think if there's anything other than that, nothing's changed. That's about it.
Any ideas, anybody has any suggestions? The last time we had it at, over in St. Paul at Garris,
Still wanted the year before that.
and Stillwater the year before that. I think it's a little bit too far east. I would like to bring it a little closer. I mean, I don't know whether anybody has any ideas. We're not gonna hold it on a weekend. It's gonna be a weekday night because we figured weekends is too hard for people. In December, people are just doing their Christmas stuff. They don't have time to go to some other Christmas party. So we're gonna do it on our standard Thursday. Right now, we're looking at it. Might be something different, but it's gonna be standard, like any other social. It'll be 4 to 6 or 10 or whatever we want to let it go to. But it's gonna be, we're gonna try and make it nice. And anybody has some good venue ideas that's a little more centrally located to where our members are, that would be nice. Membership, you wanna give us a report on members?
Sure, since I looked it up here. I'm a little behind on tracking the number of unique individuals who have attended meetings, but I'm gonna estimate it's right around 110 people have visited at one time or another, of which 72 at one time or another were members. The current membership count is 44, of which 18 are certified with the national chapter. And I've got a few that are renewing this month. I don't have a list with me. That's generally it.
Committee chairs, most of our committee chairs are vacant right now. We need help, guys. We just had our communication chair resign for personal reasons. So we need help. Communications chair is basically updating and managing the website. Well, right now Bob is gonna be doing that because we need to transfer and get it so that things are more current. I went out there this last week and it still had last year's board members on it. I don't know if somebody uploaded a old version of what our webpage out there or what, but it still showed Rich on there.
Well, I haven't
I went
changed, so.
I went out this week and it was right, or last week. And it was
What?
fine. I went out last week and it seemed okay.
But I don't know, maybe it's just, maybe there's a double link to the page. I don't know. Maybe it's just my computer at home.
You gotta clear your browser history.
Clear your cache.
Get along good.
I run it in Sandbox, so my browser
Oh, that's
Flash
probably,
gets cleared every time I close it. So anyhow, we meet, and the other thing they do is they send out our monthly emails to the people that are out there. And we need to get that up to date, so someone's doing it. And Amber has agreed to start looking at that too. So that would be great. Scott, you need to set her up with access to the month MailChimp, so that she has access to it, so she can go through it. And this last month was a little different because I sent just an email with what's on there, and the font turned up a little
You
flaky.
didn't like the font, huh?
No, I didn't like the font.
Sorry.
That was probably because you just cut and paste, and my font was strange on my Word document.
Oh, so it's your fault?
Yeah, it's my fault. Let's go on to the next one. These are the other chairs we need, is meeting organization, which is basically, all these jobs are, probably just 1 hour a month. And if the board does them all, it makes it so that you get burnout, and then the individual board members decide they don't want to do this anymore. So meeting organizations, planning out a location and common body logic topics for the next 12 months meetings. Sponsorship chair, recruit sponsors to sponsor our meetings, because if it wasn't for the sponsors, we wouldn't be able to have any socials or any other things. Education, we have a volunteer that's thinking about it. Jonathan says that he would come to our next board meeting, and we'll talk about his direction where he thinks he wants to go with the education. So basically, meeting organization and sponsorship chair, and then a communication chair. We've got communications handled a little bit, but it'd still be nice to have someone that just does that. Okay, next slide. Upcoming events. This is ISC Squared Corporate, not the local chapter, is having a Secure Minneapolis 2015 on Fact Not FUD. Everybody here knows what FUD is, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Manage what you can measure. Security metrics. October 29th, one day, Embassy Suite, Secure Minneapolis, St. Paul. Came from corporate. They're in Florida, so they don't. You could get 8 CPEs for attending. If you have a certificate and you're paying your monthly due or your yearly dues, it's free. All you have to do is register. Non-members, it's $99.
I'll add to that I believe we've got 2 attendance options for members that we'll be able to give away. But what we need is volunteers to man the booth that they're allowing us to set up. So we want to do some member recruiting, and I'm going to be out of town.
You're going to be out of town?
But it would be great to have somebody there at the booth, and you can get in to attend the event if you want to volunteer. So talk to a board member, and we'll take care of getting you on that list and work out a schedule. I don't know that we've done much more planning than that.
In fact, to tell the truth, if you go to ISC Squared's main site and you just type in Secure Minneapolis, it should bring you to the page that's there. This is a long link.
F2CD27CED3F.
Write it down real quick like it should be.
But like I say, if you go to the ISC Squared Corporate's website, you just search on Secure Minneapolis, it'll link you to where you're going. So this is a corporate event, we're sponsoring, we get a booth. Let's go to the next thing. I have also some brochures about the Cybersecurity Summit, which is a local group that puts it out, and it's October 20th and 21st, and it's going to be at the Marriott Northwest, which is in Brooklyn Park. I signed a deal where we get a 10% discount if you're a member of the local chapter, but you must register by October 18th. I am not going to spend any more time on it. We have brochures here.
If you need the
They
discount,
they aren't going to give us a booth. They aren't going to give us free, what do you call it? All we're going to do, the only reason I signed this is for this, so that you guys get it for 10% off.
and you can email membership if you, membership at isc2tc.org. If you are a paid member, I will send you that discount code. If you're interested in membership, see me or send an email. It's $20 annually. Runs 365 days from whenever I talk to you.
And you can actually pay online.
And
You can pay online, you can pay with credit cards, you can pay with check. Pay online is probably quicker. Paying with a check, you gotta wait till it gets there and gets deposited and gets balanced. I would recommend that if you're gonna pay online, that you send a note to membership at iscsquaredtwincities.org.
yeah, the online registration goes to our treasurer, and then I wait for an email to know that you're gonna be a member.
Yeah, so that would be,
So send us both and we'll both get on the ball.
let's go to the next one. This is the one that they just talked about. We're getting a bigger discount from them, and we're actually getting to present here. This is probably our maybe 8th meeting at this location. And then when it was benchmark learning, we probably had another 10, 12 at their location. So, I mean, they've done well for us. So if you want to go and you want to get this, and I used to work for Benchmark back in the pre-1990. So I'm a little bit prejudiced, but I think they do a good job on training. So, I mean, that's there. Next step is jobs. We always like to put it, if anybody's got jobs available. I mean, does anybody have any?
My employer is working on trying to clear the rec, so it's in progress, but we're looking for a DevOps engineer. There's an information security component to it. DevSecOps, if you
Well,
want to.
I've heard it different. DevSecOps,
DevSecOps is the official version. That's what I've been practicing for a while. There's a website that covers that. Anyhow, we just had my coworker put in his notice. Tomorrow's his last day. It'll probably take us 2 weeks before the job opening exists, but I'd love to fill a position like right now. So if you want to come back, work for Morpho Trust, let me know.
Okay, anybody else have jobs? I heard from a student at the CISSP study group that United Healthcare has several job openings there. So for security engineers, so that's always there.
If anybody's looking for work, raise your hand, and I think we know each know of a pretty good list. Wells Fargo's hiring, Target's hiring, Medica's hiring,
Best Buy.
Best Buy is hiring.
I mean,
I'm hiring.
you're looking right now at probably 8% negative unemployment in security. And if you're in security upper management, you're looking at probably 15 to 20% negative. There's more jobs than there are people to fill them. So part of the thing here is training and getting with our group with helping with the CISSP training was to get people trained and certified so that they can actually get more people into this profession. So that's part of what we're going to talk to Jonathan about as far as his ideas, is try to actually peddle it to the education institutions to get people thinking about security as a field. Okay, that's it for my my slides. My last slide is just the standard. That's us. Now we can go on to, we're going to go to Sean. Ryan is the representative from RSA, is going to talk to us about the threat.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for the time today. So, Sean O'Brien, I'm a manager within the RSA business. We cover quite a bit of different technologies. I'll talk to that briefly, but before I do that, maybe just a quick introduction on our side. We have Kirk Cruz, who is our SE manager, specifically addressing advanced security operations and security analytics. Dave Coughlin is one of our SEs in the same area. And then also we have Jason Webster, who is one of our salespeople covering Minnesota, and then John Hunkfeller, who is also one of our salespeople covering Minnesota and North Dakota, again in the same area of technology, advanced security operations and security analytics. So what I was thinking today is that we would, oh, thanks.
All the other buttons
We'll do a quick 2-3 minutes RSA commercial, kind of telling you what we're doing and what our go-to-market strategy is, but that's not what you're here to listen to today. So what we're going to continue on then is really our impression and our take on what the current threat landscape is looking like. Jason Webster will go through that. We've got roughly, 15, 20 slides on that. And then Kurt or Dave or both of you are going to talk about Terracotta, which is a compromised VPN scenario that we being RSA Labs and RSA just recently announced at Black Hat. We'll talk a little bit about what's occurring in that, and also additional information that if you wanted, we would be able to furnish to you. Any questions, comments? Sound good? Make sense? Fair enough. So anybody know what this is? Everybody seen this before? So obviously we're very familiar with breaches and advanced threats because we experienced something around Secure ID approximately 4 years ago, right? Out of that, we spent $100 million plus, and also it helped change and form the shape and the direction of the company that we're today and also moving forward with. So what that really means is that we've moved into what we think is more of the addressable market and more relevant information and relevant content and technologies and processes and products, et cetera, that we think is appropriate to the market and also current threat landscape and also what our customers are asking for, right? So out of that, we've minimized our portfolio a little bit. We've modified some things. We've also added additional technologies and directions, and we'll continue to do that, right? And it's also helpful when EMC is behind us and it's got $40 billion, or whatever the heck the number is, to help continue along those lines. So what that means for us is that we've created a new go-to-market strategy that addresses really kind of 4 primary areas. And I'll talk about that here briefly, but in a high-level summary, it's authentication, it's identity management and governance, it's advanced security operations and security analytics, and then also governance as a standalone technology or focus. So what that means for us is, first off, we're looking at who's coming through the front doors, right? And obviously that for us is Secure ID. We're understanding who has access initially to walk through that front door. And then we're looking at it from an identity and access perspective. That could be cloud or on-prem. That's going to address who has access to what. We're going to look at provisionings. We're going to look at entitlements. We're looking at automating that as much as possible, right? Typically, there's a lot of different products that have been in this area for many, many years. A lot of smaller organizations still do it in a manual capacity, but when you're looking at large organizations or medium-sized organizations with multi-applications and thousands or hundreds of users, it becomes an enormous challenge, right? And then we're looking at collecting all this different information, right? We're looking at this from logs, from packets, we're looking at it from NetFlow, We're looking at it from various threat intelligence. We're looking at it from IPS, IDS, AVs, firewalls, DLPs, et cetera, et cetera. Anything that's bringing in any kind of security-related analytics that's going to give us some intelligence that is going to allow us to react in real time as much as possible, right? Something that's occurred, 2-3 weeks ago is probably not very relevant. It's too late, right? We're looking for real-time information that's going to allow us to act intelligently. And that's where we get into the analytics, whether it's from a threat, a fraud, a compliance, or identity perspective, right? So many different ways to address that, whether it's going to be corporate type of driven activities, or maybe it's external government type of federal policies, et cetera. Then we look at it from an overall governance. How are you running your business? What's important to you from policies? Again, maybe it's external policies like SOX, HIPAA, PCI, or maybe it's internal policies that are telling you how to control your data and what to do with it. So from what you can see there, we've got a flow that kind of goes up and down the stack, where all of them are very much interchanged, whether it's from the initial authentication, identity, full visibility, real-time visibility, and then back to the governance and how you run that. The nice part about it from our portfolio, right, we have technologies that fit within this area, but this also can be a plug and play with other technologies that our competitors also provide. So by us having this model, which we think is really a great way to address security, risk, and compliance, it hopefully can be a comprehensive approach for our customers and allow them to be successful in navigating through the current threat landscape. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Jason, who will walk through a little bit of what we're seeing from the current threat landscape, and then we'll get into the Terracotta report with Kurt and Dave.
Great.
Thanks.
So again, my name is Jason Webster. So I'm part of our team here locally that's really focused on advanced threats. So I got about 15 slides here, but one of the nice things about having a little bit smaller group is we can make this much more conversational. So, obviously we have a team here from RSA. All of us have kind of unique backgrounds in the security space. So, let's ask questions. If I can't answer it, I'm sure one of these guys can. So, but definitely appreciate the opportunity to come in here today to talk a little bit more about what we're seeing. And again, we're not going to be doing an RSA commercial the whole time. So Sean covered that, so no more. Maybe just a few. All right, so first thing is we just recently released a security poverty index. We have a full report. We can actually send this to you guys if you want. But what it basically was a study, worldwide study. Didn't matter what vertical, size company. It was roughly about 400 to 500 companies that we surveyed around security maturity. And what we're starting to see is that organizations are starting to realize that their security maturity and posture is not enough for today's advanced attacks, right? We're seeing more and more breaches, regardless of the vertical, right? Last year was obviously big retail. We're seeing it, across every vertical, really. And now, organizations globally are starting to realize that they don't have enough. The preventative tools that they've invested in over the past decade are not enough any longer. So again, we can provide you the full report, but a couple of interesting takeaways, right? Out of the 400 to 500 companies that we surveyed, only about 5% felt that they were advantaged or advanced. Okay, 75% felt quote unquote significantly exposed from a cybersecurity standpoint. One of the takeaways I thought was pretty interesting was it didn't really matter the size of the organization. Didn't matter the vertical, didn't matter the geolocation. So, roughly APJ, EMEA, the US were all the same. What I thought was pretty interesting was that, for larger organizations, they actually felt that they were more immature and more at risk, right? Maybe that's because they're seeing more and they're getting, better exposure. But they felt that they were the ones that were most at risk and the most immature. What I kind of thought was interesting was that in the let's just say mid-market, 1,000 to 10,000 employees, those were the ones that felt they were the most mature. So again, we can provide this full report, but overall, it's just evidence that today's organizations are starting to realize that we have a problem in security, right? The traditional tools are not working. So, like I said, the traditional tools are not working, and so it's been. Did anyone go to the RSA conference this year or any other? Great, saw you guys there. So one of the big things I've heard in security is hey, let's put up, taller walls or bigger moats, or let's, add alligators to the moats and stuff like that, right? So, but, the problem is that, we can keep on building these walls taller and taller and taller, but the reality is that they're not working, right? The preventative tools that we're putting in place today are just continuing to be evaded, right? We'll see that from breach reports and things of that nature. So even the most advanced technologies are starting to fail that are focused on prevention alone. This is a good example, right? I mean, everyone knows it from an AV perspective, like, antivirus is what, 20, 30% effective at best, right? Here's a good example from the 2014 Verizon data breach report. Only 1% of the breaches were actually discovered from a SIM, from a traditional SIM platform, right? And the vast majority of breaches were the companies were informed for an external, source, like the FBI or something like that. So, this is just evidence again that traditional tools that are on the market are just not keeping up with the advanced threat landscape. The adversaries are more sophisticated. They're very well funded. They're very motivated. And if you have an attacker and he's hands on the keyboard, he has time, he has money. If there's something in your organization they want, they'll get it, right? So that just kind of highlights some of the kind of the tenets we'll be talking here about today. So there's 5 takeaways. This is some of the slides we actually presented at the RSA conference. 5 takeaways that we're helping our customers with. We're suggesting that they start to think about. Again, these aren't like products that necessarily RSA is aligned to, but just how we're trying to help our customers think. So even advanced protections fail, okay? If you're trying to prevent an attacker from getting in, even if you have a very sophisticated way of doing it, eventually the attackers will get in, right? We're seeing that now with sandbox-aware malware and things of that nature, right? So, we're helping organizations start to get their head around the fact that, yeah, you might have every preventative tool in place. RSA, when we got breached 4 years ago, we had every tool known to man, right? We had the most advanced preventative technologies in place. They failed to prevent the nation state from attacking us. It was actually a SOC analyst who saw just unusual traffic patterns. But he just basically said, that's funny, this is abnormal for us. That's how we determined our breach, right? So, and we had, all the, the best in the, best technologies in the market, not just RSAs, but in the overall security market. So, thinking about your new investments, what value is it really providing, right? Think about your continued investments as well that's going on from a maintenance perspective, antivirus and things of that nature. What value is that really providing and helping that to reduce the overall costs? Think about from an integration standpoint, what technologies you're putting in place today. I imagine everyone has limited resources from a body standpoint and a time standpoint. So having tools that are integrated today, so you can just get much more effectiveness out of your SOC program is really important. Visibility. This is one of the biggest things that we recommend to all of our clients. So again, with preventative tools, just not blocking today's attacks, right? We need to get pervasive visibility into our networks, into our endpoints, into our web traffic. Getting that complete visibility so you can start to spot those anomalies, just like our SOC analysts saw. That's really, really key. And that's the one of the most important things that as a security community we can start to do. Focus on the visibility, start to see trends in traffic and things of that nature. So we can really start to spot the anomalies. So eliminating the blind spots, looking at all the data, again, getting a complete visibility into your endpoints, into your network. Looking at the packets from an ingress, egress perspective. Looking at lateral movement through NetFlow and things of that nature. So again, not relying on the tools like a traditional SIM platform to have alerts of kind of known bad happening. That's not enough to combat today's advanced threats. People, behavioral analysis. We'll talk about identity management a little bit, but that's really key, right? starting to see, what's abnormal from a user perspective. If I'm doing something that's out of context from my role, from my past behavior, that's really important, obviously. Then, monitoring the transactions, right? Whether that be, I'm not sure what everyone's companies are, but whether it's a financial transaction or, any sort of transaction that might be occurring. Monitor your key business applications, especially the back ends as well. So really just starting to focus more and more on visibility, getting complete visibility. That's going to help us in the battle against the bad guys. So identity. With more and more of everyone relying on the cloud, and with no more perimeter, that's one of the things we talk about a lot, how the perimeter is now gone. Essentially, there is no perimeter, right? With third parties and mobile and things of that nature. But identity is the one piece that we can control, no matter what we're leveraging, right? So, cloud applications, you still control that identity. So getting a clear sense of someone's identity is ultra important. More information from the Verizon data breach report, but 95% of the time attackers get legit credentials and come right in, right? So having a key handle on the identity and authentication is very, very important.
And a lot of times when we are involved with breach response and incident response, the first thing that our customers do is they put in some kind of strong authentication, right? Two-factor. We want to make sure we understand who is walking through those doors. And then we get further into what do they have access to.
Yep. And not just, a lot of these organizations have it in place, but not throughout the entire organization. So, we work on breaches all the time where, again, the first response is let's expand our authentication strategy to have all workers, third parties, all employees, all remote access, all privileged users. So again, strong authentication. We've been doing this for 25 years or whatever the case is from an RSA perspective. But in light of the Target breach from a couple years ago, right, we've seen a huge uptick in authentication again. So obviously with the amount of breaches, that authentication is becoming more and more important. So again, looking at your overall environment, making sure that everyone has strong authentication, putting it in front of the key applications and things of that nature as well. Getting a handle on your identity management, making sure that you have just good hygiene around identity management. That may not be installing an identity management platform or system. That might just be putting in the proper processes to make sure that everyone's access is reviewed on a regular basis, make sure that everyone has the right levels of access that's appropriate for their jobs, make sure you're deprovisioning in a timely fashion, right? And embracing mobile, whether it's as an authentication or as actually an access platform as well. Intelligence. Anybody leveraging threat intelligence in your organizations today? It's one of the biggest things I think it's really starting to get adopted now, but I think it's really going to take off. It'll become much more of a game changer in the next year, 2 years. But kind of through some of the work that we do in different surveys and things like that, find that about 43% of organizations are leveraging some sort of threat intelligence, right? But that's numbers continue to grow.
Does that include just signature files for IDS and things like that that are externally sourced, or are you talking about a level above that?
I would think that would probably be factored in here. It's not a full identity management. Not a full threat intelligence system. I think that would definitely count as part of this number. Also, different ISAC groups and things of that nature.
So Alien Vault has the Open Threat Exchange. There are a couple of other public repos, if you will, of bad actor IPs and stuff. What does RSA offer in terms of threat intelligence, or you've got tools, or do you have a feed, or?
Yeah, so it really depends on, we have different feeds. We have a First Watch community. So take it back a little bit. We have a lot of teams in the cyber underground, right, through some partner organizations that's based in Israel. So we're constantly manning or watching the cyber underground. We offer some services around that, right? We also build that into some of our products as well. So if you're ever seeing our adaptive authentication platform, There's some threat intelligence through this team that's built in. Also through some of our advanced cyber detection tools. Not to get into product, but security analytics. We have a team called First Watch that's constantly looking and creating new threat intelligence. Also bringing in some other third parties that we subscribe to and pumping it into our platforms as well.
So we have a
is there-
content management team, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We have a content management team back at RSA that aggregates basically everything that you could get off the internet free and then try to figure out how to write IOCs around this threat intelligence. So they write that and they aggregate it and it feeds into our platforms. So it's another way of enriching the data that we're seeing coming across your environments through our platforms. Some of them are additional sites that we subscribe to. So it's not just RSA First Watch team that's developing this intelligence as well. It's other organizations that we also subscribe to and then aggregate that up to our platforms.
Our biggest advantage there is to operationalize that feed. So instead of you getting a whitelist here, a blacklist there, you subscribe to this feed and this file and this information, and it doesn't really make any sense together. They compile that together, they aggregate it as John mentioned, and operationalize it inside of the tool. So you don't have to do that work. You have that threat intel right at your fingertips, and it's being compared against the traffic that we're seeing, the log files we're seeing, the information that's happening on your network live.
Yeah, so it's not a threat feed that we market outside of our technologies.
Yeah, the other thing that we do in some of our products is coming out, and some of the other ones are kind of that global sharing between our customers as well. So I mean, just the key is to get actionable information, right? That's something that we're always talking to customers about. But you want to get, there's a ton of data out there you can get. And you really need to make that data actionable, right? And get as much data as possible, right? That could come from, we'll talk about it a little bit about your own internal assets and things like that. But threat intelligence is another, great example of this. Make sure you get timely threat intelligence so you can make the right decisions. And again, we have limited teams, across all the organizations here. So putting all that intelligence into the hands of the people who are actually seeing the security events so they can make the right decisions, right? To arm them as much as possible. Again, Kurt was mentioning operationalizing. We do that in some of our tools, but that's something all organizations can think about is how do you take this threat intelligence and bring it into your security program truly to really operationalize it. And this is something that I'm always intrigued when I get to speak to our SOC team about how they bring it in, and they have roles within their own organization of threat intelligence. So they actually have named roles of people who are doing the threat intelligence. Now, obviously, that's not realistic for every organization, right? But that's something that you can build to over time, potentially, right? So, maybe in the future you can look at developing yourself as well. So prioritizing. So again, we all have limited resources, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do in terms of prioritizing the incidents that we're seeing. There's a lot of context that we have, that you all have, right? The business context, knowing all your critical assets, knowing which assets are critical, so you can prioritize those in terms of workflows and things of that nature. Having the identity context at your hands, so you can start to know, okay, well, this is Jason. So I'm seeing something happen from Jason, but who is he? What does he have access to? What's his role? And then you can start to do some cool things like what am I doing that's outside of my role, right? But you have a lot of that data at your fingertips already. Just making sure that you're doing the upfront work of kind of just compiling that all. That might not be a system. That might just be ongoing, and evaluating all your processes, all your critical applications, just so you can kind of go through that exercise. Did anybody go to the Advanced conference earlier this year? So when the Target CISO got up and spoke, and this is one of the things he talked about. One of the things I thought was really cool is he would do these quarterly retreats, he called them, and he'd bring a security team to the room, and they would start talking about things like this, right? Critical assets, critical processes, and things. But they would also just whiteboard every type of potential attack. What's valuable to an attacker? Because the things that they think may be valuable, right? There might be something completely different that an attacker feels is valuable. So, so he would do this quarterly retreat and just start spitballing ideas on the whiteboard, and using that to start to think about different ways an attacker might get in, different pieces of information that might be valuable to an attacker. So, getting all that information and all that context into your security program. And then into your security incident response program, your internal incident response program. How do you take your analyst who has to deal with all these different alerts and attacks and giving them all this at their fingertips so they can take their response time on a particular incident from days or hours into potentially minutes, right? So having that all at their fingertips so they can really start to be more effective in their roles. So now we're going to kind of go into some really interesting things around the Terracotta report we just mentioned. But is there any questions or any comments around what we just kind of discussed here? No? All right, cool. Sure. Yeah.
Just the top one. Okay. All right, very good. So we were introduced. My name is Kurt Cruz again. This is Dave Coughlin. So I'm the SE manager for the Central Region for RSA. Dave is one of the SEs on my team. Dave was partnered up with a couple of gentlemen in the back there. So what we're going to talk about today is the Terracotta VPN. So I don't know if has anybody go to Black Hat by any chance? Okay. Did you happen to catch this?
I did not. I was there for 12 days and there was an awful lot to see.
Absolutely. Well, this is a shame. That's a shame you didn't make it this one. It's actually quite interesting. So this is kind of an anatomy of a threat that had occurred in China that our threat team, First Watch, had uncovered. And it was kind of done. Okay. It's on the wrong button. It's on the wrong button. So our First Watch threat team had uncovered this in China. And the way that it happened was a little odd. Instead of some big major breach where you bring in all these people and you pay for a large engagement, they happened to get a phone call, a guy named Kent Backman on our organization. Got a phone call from a colleague who's a defense contractor working at a government agency. And he said, something's weird. Something odd. Would you check this out? So they got on a WebEx, they were working together, and they were seeing this particular attack coming in, or a malware outbreak that occurred internally, but it was coming from a charter school in Arizona. Well, that doesn't really make any sense. Why would a charter school be attacking us? So they looked into it a little bit closer, and what they found is that this particular charter school had an unpatched Windows server external to their internet-facing egress point. That server had been compromised, and inside of that server was a VPN termination point. So the attack was actually coming through a VPN connection into that charter school and going back out to this particular defense organization through this anonymized website or this organization that didn't seem odd. So they kind of peeled it all back and they found this entire ecosystem of this VPN attack platform, if you will, coming out of the People's Republic of China and was attacking organizations across the globe. So we're going to kind of talk through what this was and what they found and some of how it works and some of the details around it. So one of the interesting points, Terracotta is just an internal name that our particular team came up with. So it's just more of a code name, if you will, for what this particular ecosystem was. Terracotta currently, if you look at it from a marketing perspective, it's just a commercial VPN service that you can sign up for. So it's marketed under several different brand names. So just like Coke, Pepsi, RC Cola, down the list, it's all just the same product, but purchased under a different name with the same company behind it. So it's actually a legitimate company that sells VPN services, but has both a legal and an illicit side of the house.
It's not my free VPN connection.
It might be yours. We'll talk about that later. So some of the basic fundamentals is that they were looking to bypass government restrictions. They do have hacked servers that are across the globe, and we'll show you a map of where those are coming from. And there are also a couple legitimate servers in there, but not very many because that's not very cost effective. So if you look at the final one, if you're offering VPN services for paid service, if you can get all of your infrastructure for free, why would you want to go out and buy and contract with a web provider?
Kurt, I was gonna say, one thing that was interesting when we contacted them, they were in the process of increasing their internet bandwidth because all their applications were lagging, they had performance problems. They said, all right, we're gonna go out and get more bandwidth, so basically they're gonna give an upgrade to the Terracotta network. And I used to do a lot of work at schools and things like that, and that was one of the things they always wanted to throw bandwidth at it anytime they had a performance problem. Have a little bit of visibility shows you, hey, there's something weird going on here. Bandwidth isn't going to fix the problem.
Fantastic business model, right? So let's move on. So a couple more details about that last slide. So a couple of the use cases were predominantly privacy, performance, and then the Great Firewall traversal. So in China, obviously in the PRC, you are limited to where you can go on the internet. They have a lot of restrictions, a lot of controls. If you can get a VPN through that firewall to get outside of those controls, you can get to whatever you need to. On the privacy side of the house, or excuse me, on the performance side of the house as well, they have a lot of interesting routing that's happening inside of the government-controlled internet. So when you make a connection that's legal and through the VPN, you're actually making a faster egress to that network than you do normally. So these folks are making a couple gains by doing this. Again, as we pointed out, Terracotta has obtained most of that network through hacking into servers that are unpatched, not being controlled properly, and using that at legitimate organizations to be able to leverage their infrastructure and make their network much, much, much larger. From what we have seen in our research at this point, the entire ecosystem is ran from China. There's still work being done, people are still looking at it, but at this point, the authentication servers and the command and control servers that are creating the breaches and then operating the actual network are all inside of China at this point. The other interesting thing they said, and back to that story that I mentioned on the last slide, is that the Terracotta organization and that service was actually being used by APT. So if you guys are familiar with Shell Crew and Deep Panda, both of those organizations who are known APT actors have been using that to get through to our networks from an anonymous perspective and obscuring their attacks by coming from legitimate IPs in the US or across the globe that might be typical to your organization or normal to your organization. So they're trying to obscure where they're coming from to make it look a little bit more normal than coming directly from PRC.
So if you had like country filters, this would pretty much blow that up.
Right, would not work.
Yeah.
And as we all know, I mean, country filters are great as a starting point. You know, you eliminate the ones that you don't want, but the people that are really good at this game, it's not really much of a barrier to get over. You know, again, you're trying to remove some of the needles out of the needle stack. So the needle you're looking for is a little bit easier to find, a smaller stack perhaps, but it's not a silver bullet, obviously. Yeah. And the other interesting thing is that there's no evidence that we've seen at this point that show people like Shell Crew, Deep Panda, or any of the actual APT actors are part of the Terracotta web service, the VPN service that was created. So it's kind of a separate entity there. Now, when we look at the way this thing is kind of stacked up, we see 2 actors and 2 victims. So I'll start in the middle and work to the sides. So if you look at the Terracotta operators, those are the people that are doing the recons via port scans, ping scans, finding the servers out there, looking for those Windows servers that have port 135 open. They hack into them, they break in through brute force, they use malware to get on the servers, and then they provide a command and control network to be able to add the VPN service to the server, do the work they need without getting caught. They also have a couple legally obtained nodes that are out there, but very few. That's one of the threat actors. Down below, you'll see the Terracotta victim. So those are the actual organizations that are being broken into, that their Windows 2008 server that's sitting outside of their firewall has actually been hacked, been added to these servers, and to the large degree have no idea that this is going on, you know, through their bandwidth and through that access. And that's to include the radius authentications. On the left side of the screen, we have the APT actors. So again, just as an example, Shell Crew and Deep Panda. These are people that are using this methodology to get through and attack government agencies, enterprises, small companies, big companies, you name it, they're coming after everybody. But those threat actors are just leveraging this to get to those APT targets on the far right side. So again, all of those organizations that you would typically expect threats to come at, they're over there. That's who our APT actors are going after.
I'd just like to say there's really two types of attacks that are happening here. There's the brute force attack. It's not very sophisticated. That's what the terracotta operators are doing to compromise those systems. And then the APTs, they're going in slow and low, going under the radar with their APTs. And so that's what makes this really dangerous and really challenging, because you have legitimate nodes. You have, let's say it's a server that's sitting in a doctor's office. You can't just block that because you might have legitimate traffic. It might impact your business if you block that traffic. So there's no whitelist, blacklist, or firewall rule you can put in for this. It's really easy to see these type of brute force attacks with these APTs that are now encrypted and they're anonymous. That's really hard to track down. So that's what makes this really challenging, is having that vehicle that they can use for these APTs.
So moving on, so we're now going to walk through the terracotta, the enlistment process. So this is a non-sophisticated attack. These guys, I just want to point this out. This is not some advanced, you watch the Firewall movie or the latest, exaggeration film out there that shows these guys breaking 256 AES encryption in real time with a couple of keystrokes. This is low bandwidth, simple things that they're coming at you with on a day-to-day basis and getting access to these servers. So I'll let Dave walk through the slide.
Sure. So first off, I just want to get a kind of a poll here. Does anybody have Windows servers in their environment? Does anybody maybe have a Windows server that the administrator username is administrator?
That wouldn't be willing to admit it.
And are you absolutely certain of all those?
And you don't have to raise your hand. I'm just asking these questions here. And by chance, is the Windows firewall maybe disabled, or maybe there's some open ports and things like that within the Windows firewall? What we found is the way that these terracotta operators would get in is they do a brute force attack using the administrator username. Every one of these systems that was compromised, the username was administrator. And so these typically sat, all of these systems that we found didn't have a hardware firewall in front of it, didn't have the Windows firewall, or it had it open, and they basically used brute force attack to get in there. And if you look at this in stages, the first stage is that brute force attack. So they go out, they do the port scans, they do the password. I'll try administrator, and I'll just go through and do a dictionary attack. I'll go through every password that I have in here. A lot of that can be done through a script or from a very kind of low-level hacker. So you can get some kid that's going in there, script kiddie they call him, and he's going in there, going through his toolkit, and he says, hey, I found something. Kurt, look what I found. Kurt takes over, and he says, okay, now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to RDP into it. I'm going to start installing all of my tools. I'm going to create Windows accounts, and I'm going to use legitimate services like VPN and Telnet. And that's what makes it hard to detect, because there might be legitimate reasons for doing VPN and things like that. And it starts using, at this point, valid credentials.
And as a side note, these servers typically were not running VPN services on them. They were servers doing other functions, other features.
You think about a system that you might have in development that just sits out there. The developer says, I need to get access to this from home. And maybe he's not good about cleaning things up or changing the passwords and things like that. That's a trusted system that now gets compromised, and then we can come in here, the hackers can come in and do all of this. So once they've got everything set up, next thing they're going to do is they're going to test out the account. And you'll see here that there are servers that they use for creating the accounts, and there's also a couple domains that they use. So this is one of the things that we look for as part of the detection for this particular terracotta network.
And they have really good SLAs, because on this first side of the house, when this gets completed, this side of the house gets completed within minutes of the initial breach. So they're very good at passing that ticket and opening up HP OpenView and sending that ticket over to their colleague, and it picks it up and gets it done right away. So they're very efficient, they're very, very fast. So again, in this slide, it's going to talk about how the actual VPN component of this works.
So if you think about how this network is set up, it is, it's illegally set up. They're going in, they're hacking systems. We'll talk about a little bit later. They are setting up some legitimate systems, but for the most part, these are compromised servers that they've gotten into that don't belong to them. They're not, paying the electric bill. They're not paying for the bandwidth. So the network itself is pretty sketchy to begin with. But the end user may not know that when he signs up for it. He goes out to a website and he says, okay, I want to use this VPN client. It's really simple. He does a web search. He picks whichever brand of the Terracotta VPN that he wants to use. He'll sign up for an account, download the client, and then at that point, he'll log into the system. And once he's logged into the system and authenticates, he'll get a list of all of the available nodes. So this is the VPN node that I'm going to use to do, maybe it's, legitimate web surfing, email, things like that, or maybe I'm going to launch an APT or something like that. And so once he's logged in, he authenticates with the domains, and he has basically full access, and not just full access, but it's encrypted and it's anonymous. So think about that. He pretty much doesn't have any accountability at that point.
And it's kind of interesting when they actually log into the service. You are presented with a list of potential connection points. And if you do a reverse lookup on those domain names, you find that all of the legitimate servers have this vast multi-homing structure behind them. So you have 300, 400 different IPs going to the same NIC card. Whereas if you go to the illegitimate or illicitly gained systems, they're all one-to-one. Anything else on this one?
Nope. Okay. So this is a map of, and this was current as of the end of July. But you'll see here, a majority of these compromised systems exist in China and the United States. And as I mentioned earlier, when they log in, they'll get an update of all the new nodes, because as we're notifying customers or notifying the victims of their compromised systems, they're taking them off the Terracotta network, fixing them, and then just as fast as they're fixing them, there's plenty of Windows servers out there that are vulnerable that they're grabbing. But in addition to that, what we're finding is they're grabbing cloud service provider resources now, and they're setting up legitimate servers, but using that, as Kurt had mentioned, multi-homed, where they're now using that as well for part of the Terracotta network.
Okay, so a lot of people shaking their heads, this doesn't happen to us. Here's the interesting thing. I was a director of security at United Health Group for 7 years. I worked at Wells Fargo for 6 years. These things happen all the time. There are so many links, so many ingress, egress points in these organizations, you lose track of. There are devices on your network that are misconfigured through error, intention, backdoors that administrators are put in to make their own lives easier in some cases. There's a lot of risk in your organization. If you say it can't happen to us, you can jump in line with all of these folks. You have schools, we have Fortune 500 organizations with high maturity rates that make mistakes. There's a provider somewhere in here that's actually providing IT services for other people. Terracotta was just one of them, apparently. I don't think the contract is very strong with that particular organization, but these are not people that simply don't know any better, that don't have any talents, that don't have strong administrators that understand security. It's people that made a mistake, maybe misconfigured, some sort of an error. So when you go back to your organizations, don't just nod your head and shake it off and say, it can't happen to us, we're 100%. Look underneath, turn those stones over, see what you can find. Something's probably out there that would scare you. Good on that. So detection is critical. So I'll put in an RSA plug, even though I told Sean I would not do this. Some of the products that we have security analytics, where we can bring together full packet capture, NetFlow, security logs, information, event management information, telemetry information from your network to help you see these things in real time. We have the threat feed that we talked about, Mike, Eric, that you mentioned earlier, that we're integrating into the tool sets to be able to help find these things without you having to go out and find the right list to make sure you're looking for something that's legitimate today. These detection components, when we published this, Guess who's listening? These exact same people, the APT actors, the Terracotta organization, they just adapt. They change the IP addresses of their authentication service to make it more resilient. They change the IPs of their information. They keep pivoting and moving to stay one step ahead of everyone. So as we're researching and we're finding these changes and we're adding that to the threat feeds, it has to be immediately be able to be operationalized and put back into your security ecosystem to be able to find those threats in an effective way before they start just sending data back out to China and producing that new Tesla car with a strangely close T. I don't know, anybody see that article? China just released a brand new electric car. It looks strikingly close to the Tesla, even down at the logo and the features and the functionality. But, you know, when you're looking at it, you know, there are multiple, if you consider what you have in the kill chain, you know, what are you going to do to be different? How are you going to not be one of these people that got compromised? You know, the node enlistment. There's opportunity here from a network perspective, from a hardening perspective, making sure your firewalls are behind, excuse me, your devices are behind firewalls, making sure that the ports and protocols allowed to those devices don't include the protocols that can be leveraged to hack into those particular devices. Are you looking at the network traffic? If you're looking for the packets that are coming to and fro to these devices, you're going to be able to catch these folks. VPN resources. If you have devices that are having services and functions that you didn't configure on them, perhaps that's an indicator you should look at it a little bit more closely. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do in the kill chain to stop the recon, stop the attack, stop the egress of the data, to monitor and watch your network. You know, when we talk about visibility, that's a great word. I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, but what part of visibility are you going to take back, or are you going to do differently to make sure you can see when someone is doing something negative to your network? Your associated malware. You know, we have one of the strongest tools in the industry called ECAT, Endpoint Compromise Assessment Tool. If you're running ECAT in your organization, you would see all of these threats without even needing to have the node enlistment side or the network side covered. You know, there's lots of ways to break this thing down to be able to protect yourselves from these types of threats.
One thing I'd add with the malware is what they used was a malware called GhostRat. It was originally coded for XP, but they just changed it to work with 2008. And so 2008 R2, it's not looking for this particular vulnerability. So they were able to get in there really easily by just changing the malware. So signatures are great if you know what the attack is, but you can change it slightly, and that's how they got in with GhostRat.
We've been talking a lot apparently because there's computers and phones going off. So I don't know if we're getting a good message or not. Do you guys have any questions, any thoughts, disagreement?
Which one of these are the part of the terracotta network?
All of them.
Well, that one for sure.
Which one?
That one right there. Anybody? Well, Jonathan, what do you got to say?
I mean, it's interesting. This is such a simple model. Don't they have competitors?
They do.
Or are they the only group
They
doing
do,
this?
but the price is really low because they're using a lot of free infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. And
So there's not just one company that's
it follows the whole model of stealing intellectual property. Like, why make your own when you can just use other people's things? It's just logical extension of that whole philosophy. And it's interesting to me because I had a customer who, for practicality's sake, had just opened up remote desktop protocol through their firewall to several machines inside because, hey, why set up a VPN when people can just go just straight in?
Yeah.
And when I started working for them, they had people hitting the administrator account all day long, every day, until we shut that off.
Right, and I think there's two interesting caveats, and I didn't want to really pull it out because I'm not on the research team and I don't know this for a fact. But if you have your firewall, you know, we stated there's no, you know, appliance-based firewalls in front of these servers. But if you open up your firewall and you let that traffic directly through, it doesn't matter if you have a firewall there or not.
No.
And the
Gaping hole.
So this is sort of like the Chinese version of Tor.
Except the
Not far off.
participants are unwilling. They're unaware and they're unwilling participants.
Yeah.
Well, and they're not anonymous at all internally because they're authenticating on a central machine. And this is a great deal, not only for the organization, but also for the
So
China
it's not
government,
proxy
who,
to a VPN.
who has records of who's using which node and what they uploaded and.
Right, and one of the interesting points we skipped over, we meant to bring this up, thank goodness you said what you said, but these tunnels are typically PBTP, which we all know aren't particularly strong and secure. The government, when they're saying we're trying to be anonymous, we're trying to, stay under the privacy radar, I would fathom a guess that the Chinese government, if they're interested, they can break these tunnels, figure out what that is, read the traffic, see what's actually going on, but they're probably just allowing it because they can see it. If they really had a problem with it, they would probably just drop those protocols from getting through
And
without
it's
some sort of
it's
inspection.
servicing their IPT teams.
Absolutely. It serves a couple of purposes. Yeah, absolutely.
Free
And right,
labor.
and as we stated, in the research at this moment in time, there's no connection between the Terracotta Network and the APT actors. However, that doesn't mean there's not. It just means we haven't found the link to be able to say it definitively at this point.
So these are commercial enterprises inside of China that are selling VPN service
Yes.
to like
To just Joe
regular
consumer.
Chinese people.
Yeah, it'd be same as Visi saying, yeah, here's you don't want to buy a VPN server in your organization or whatever, we'll offer you that service for $3 a month or
Yeah,
something like that.
So does the government regulate at all who gets to sign up for that, or is that just sort of like if you want to? It puts you on the list so the government knows they gotta watch you closer, is that basically the.
I think it's the latter. I
Yeah,
didn't see anything in our white paper in the documentation that was published stating that there was any kind of restrictions or limitations on individuals being able to provide
So you just
buy the
raise your hand and
service.
say, I'm doing something, yeah, okay, got it.
All right. I've heard rumors off and on, or the Chinese government was gonna crack down on some of these VPN players. You're saying basically they're not because they're using them for ABT?
They just gave them accounts.
Well, and because it's
They're
a cheap,
okay.
it's a cheap technology
They're
that's strong
anonymously
enough
using
to
it
really
as well.
protect the user.
Yeah, just a stat. So the small window of time that our research has been looking, they've seen 118,000 individual different accounts being set up, about 98,000 unique ones, and 98% of all of the connectivities have come from China. So there are a few people like Singapore, Hong Kong, the kind of ancillary organization where you, as a web user, Michael, could go in and buy one of these services. Probably wouldn't be very effective, but you could buy that service. But 98% is coming from PRC.
We've also seen that they're creating backup domains, so if you shut one down, another one will just pop up. So that's one thing that they're gonna do.
High availability, that's good.
Yeah. just don't get the multi-home one. That's it. Get the illicit ones, not the free ones. Yeah.
So it seems to me this would be easy to honeypot. So you guys, sniffing half of the PRC's traffic now through your own servers just to research what they're doing there?
Yep, they're tracking. So we've been authorized. So when they started to unwind this whole conversation from Kent's perspective, the organization was allowed to get full control over a lot of the attack servers around in these different organizations. So they could track back the IPs, the information, the malware, all the connectivity, all that information. So we're kind of on the insider track. We are watching it very carefully. We're tracking as much as possible. But the difficulty around the honeypotting is if you get this download today, and I can talk about how you can get access to the actual information, the domains, IPs, that kind of thing. It's not accurate anymore. It changed yesterday, and it's going to change tomorrow. It's going to change the next day because they recognize the fact that we're onto them to a certain degree, but we don't know what that next step is going to be. And that's where our threat research and the intelligence, regardless if you hate RSA and you've never bought one of our products, you need good threat intelligence and you need it operationalized into your security ecosystem or you have absolutely no chance of catching these folks. They're very good. This is low sophistication, right? This is simple block and tackle, how to break into somebody's network without a lot of work. If they want to get aggressive and the APT folks really want to come after you and they have an axe to grind, they're going to come at you with some very sophisticated attacks, things that would be very shocking if you saw actually how they came in. But for the most part, they don't need to do that much work. It's pretty low, they take the low-hanging fruit. You leave servers open, you leave access, you leave the right vulnerabilities, we could just take those over really quickly.
The things we take for granted.
And that's why if you cannot guarantee, but I'll tell you my own personal story instead of putting it on you. At United Health Group, every time CNN would fire off of somebody got attacked, someone got hacked, there's a new thing, there's a new virus, there's a new piece of malware, they'd come to my desk and say, are we protected from this? And I would say, no, we're not. And, well, we have firewalls, yes, but the firewall won't catch that. We have IDS, yes, but the signatures aren't updated and we can't catch all the variants. What about our antivirus? Nope, not good enough. 30, 40, 50, call it 80% good enough. Still not good enough. You need to be 100% good enough. If you're going preventative, definition-based safety, you better have every single one. You better have the one that just created at his desktop in your SHA-256 hash file or you're done. So how do you do that? It's impossible. And that's why the shift, I think Jason was pointing out earlier, is the shift is the spend. You put 95% of your IT spend against defensive preventative strategies, and no money is going into, well, what if a piece of malware gets in? Do we have the services, capabilities, knowledge, or willingness to solve, catch, find, and deal with these problems? Most people are not putting money into that bucket. They're putting it into, how about if I put 2 firewalls right in front of each other with it? How about if I put a third antivirus system in the bottom? You know, you just run out of money, you run out of time, and operationally, the wave hits you and crushes you into the sand. You just don't have enough human beings to be able to run all the tools it takes to protect yourself from a preventative perspective. That's where we come in with RSA. And that's where our founder, Amit Yoran, founded NetWitness and Full Packet Capture to be able to catch these things in real time. We can put those sessions back together. We can see the phishing attack exactly as the user saw it on their screen, know that it's bad, find every host that clicked on that button with just a matter of a few clicks and pivoting around your data, which is why our platform is called Security Analytics, because it uses that big data analytics power to be able to figure out what happened in your network when you have no idea if you don't have that visibility to it. Sorry, I'll stop talking about this. And I'll climb. Any other questions?
Josh, show them where they can find the.
Well, I suppose we have to. So this entire breach report is very interesting. So we just kind of touched on the highlights. It drills way down into a lot of screenshots, a lot of information, multiple different pieces of malware that are being used, how they were trying to obfuscate the malware in the MD5 or the SHA-256 hash file by just padding it with zeros and some of the rudimentary things they were doing to stay under the radar. But if you go to blogs.rsa.com and you look up Terracotta, you will find that. If you want the list of domains, IPs, and all the information that we found on this, reach out to your friendly sales advisors and they can get you in contact with the right people and we can get that information to you. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay.
So this talk at Black Hat was just in your booth, right? It wasn't an actual session?
I think they did a session on it.
They may have, yeah. I mean, this is where we actually revealed all the information on it.
Yeah, I was just browsing through all the sessions. I didn't see anywhere that.
I wasn't there either.
There's a lot going on there for sure.
There was.
Good, now we got an open one. Thanks everybody for showing up. Take the material for the Tech Fusion and take some stuff for the Cybersecurity Summit. But the one that matters most is go to the ISC Square Secure Minneapolis, because that's one where we actually have a booth.
Did everybody sign in as well? I haven't seen the sign-in sheet passing around.
Honestly,
If you haven't signed in, the sheet's over here.
Of course, I want to know where everybody is, but that's not a question for anybody here.
So
Where's everybody?
I think everyone signed in but Eric. So.
Doesn't this look like the lightest turnout in ever?
Oh, he doesn't have to.
It might be his
Yeah.
computer's in front of everybody.
That's from really.
I just can't see everything.
Yeah, everybody's on that hangout,
I don't remember. I don't have. What's my
You
name?
enable Hangouts, nobody shows up.
Victim of
Anyhow, thanks guys, appreciate it.
People that come to a meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
there's some of this